dollar. Dirt and money, no soul. Had to go and get it, ain't no time to kick it. Got a stack of flip for my foes. Dollar. Please tell me you can hear me. Don't turn your back and don't neglect me. Just let me know if you need me. Dollar. Let me watch out for my partners. Keep my money long, get my team strong. Let me run away from my problems.
Yup, what's good, original crew? It's your boy DJ New Kid, your girl.
Sierra Nicole.
Back on the channel, man. We got another Mr. Baller, man. Again, we tell y'all, always spam in the comment section down below. We got Family Hunted by pack of unidentified creatures. What type of creatures you think he's gonna be?
I have no clue, to be real. What?
You just know you ain't trying to get hunted, huh?
What you want to be?
You know, some people got fetishes like that.
To be hunt? Come on. Have you ever heard of that?
Yes.
To be
You saw the? Did we not just see the dude say he wants to be ate alive?
What is different?
No, people are weird.
Well, people do have some weird fetishes. So I agree with you with that.
So
I said, have you ever heard?
Yeah, because you remember the dude who for Halloween got the whole house and the haunted house, and they go through torture for what? And nobody ever completes it.
Oh, well, yeah.
So, hey. People got fetishes. They weird.
They are. I agree with you with that.
So with that being said, man, make sure you check out the links in the description box.
Down below.
You already know where to go. If you want the first part, you got to do is check out down below. Also, if you enjoyed today's video.
I'm liking it with a thumbs up.
So do you now see why I said some people might want to be hunted by it?
I mean, yeah, I said I agree with the fetish thing, yeah. I just couldn't think of anything where, I guess my brain don't go there.
Because that ain't your fetish. Some people,
right.
Some people are like, oh, it turns me on. It just gets me right to see, just to know danger is on the other side. You know, they be like.
I feel you though, for real though. Some people do get off on stuff like that.
Who the drillium? Take me now. I'm telling you. That's how some people are, bro.
Or even vice versa. Or doing the hunting. People
yeah.
Yeah, I feel you. Okay, we don't.
I'm gonna kill him. I'm gonna get him. I'm gonna kill him and get him. I'm gonna get him. Let's go. You already tell people check out the links in the.
Yes, we done. Okay. We done.
When I was a kid, one of my favorite places to go in the whole world was my grandmother's house. She lived in South Paris, Maine. About 2,000 people lived there, totally rural, and there's lots of forests everywhere. We'd get to my grandmother's big farmhouse, and we'd just immediately go off into the woods behind her property because it was like this vast expanse of wilderness. But as soon as it got dark at night, we would all be quick to go back inside because there was huge animals that lived in the wilderness of Maine, and you just didn't want to be out there past dark. And at night, I'd be looking out at this dark forest from the safety of my room, and I would always be so scared that a set of eyes were going to look back at me from somewhere in this dark forest. Luckily, that never happened to me. It did happen to a family just north of my grandmother's house, and it wasn't just one set of eyes, it was 5. But before we get into today's story, if you're a fan of the strange, dark, and mysterious delivered in story format, then you come to the right place, because that's all I do, and I post 3, 4, even 5 times every week. If that's of interest to you, then I would encourage you to waterboard the like button, and then subscribe to this channel and turn on all notifications so you don't miss any of my weekly uploads. Alright, let's get into today's story. In 2005, Eric Martin was working at a paper mill in Maine.
Is the music still going?
Yeah.
This was his early days. The editor was.
It's still going. It's hopefully.
I might not mute this one for y'all, man.
Yeah, since it's still going and he talking and he telling the details.
Yeah, and I know people talk about the copyright part, but of it. It hasn't hit us. Hopefully it doesn't hit us. And that also, just an emphasis, that's not the reason why our video has been removed of his from YouTube. It has nothing to do with copyright. It has to do with, you know what I'm saying, the other part of YouTube guidelines.
And he had been working at this paper mill for 20 years, and he was reaching up to get something on a shelf when he threw his back out. And in fact, he had slipped a number of discs, And it ultimately meant he was not able to work anymore. He was going to be disabled. And so he's suddenly out of work. His wife, Shelley Martin, was not working at the time, but when he couldn't work, she needed to get a job. And so Shelley, who had not worked in a long time, was able, through some connections, to land a job in her hometown in Maine called Palmyra. Palmyra was a very small rural community. I mean, we're talking maybe 1,200 people that lived there. They also had a 17-year-old daughter named Chelsea who was not eager to go, but it was the only place they could afford, and so they had to go. Luckily, because Palmyra was such a cheap place to live relative to where they had been living, that for less money, they actually ended up getting a bigger piece of property than they had lived in before. It's this beautiful farmhouse that sat on a whole bunch of acreage, but it was incredibly isolated. You had to go down this bumpy access road to get to their long driveway, and then once you were on the property, you'd look out, and it was just a full 360 degrees of very dense forest that virtually no one was in. There was no nature trails. It was just dark, dense forest everywhere you looked. So even though no one's that happy about it, they end up moving into this farmhouse, and as they're unpacking their truck, Eric picks up one of his many rifles that he owned. Eric came from a long line of hunters. He loved to hunt. It was his favorite thing to do, and he had a whole bunch of guns that he kept. And as he's carrying the rifle into the house, Shelley says, "Oh no, we're not keeping the guns in the house. You have a barn, you're gonna put your guns in there." This had always been a point of contention for them in their marriage. Shelley just didn't feel safe having guns in the house, especially having kids in there. And so ultimately Eric agrees, okay, fine, I won't put my guns in the house, I'll put them in the barn. And so he went in the barn, and he and his son, Sean, who he had come out to help him, they built this gun case for all of his rifles. It was very heavy duty. They put it in the barn, and then they locked that and then locked the barn itself. So they were totally secure in the barn, but definitely not readily accessible. Over that first year, Shelley and Eric developed this ritual where at the end of the day, they would go out on the front porch of their farmhouse and look out onto the front yard, and they would drink coffee. It was something they both looked forward to, and virtually every night they did this. And so almost exactly a year after moving in, it was in early 2006, Shelley and Eric are sitting on their front porch, enjoying their coffee, they're chatting, and Shelley thinks she sees something in the woods. Now, you have to understand the layout and how far away they are from the woods to get a sense of what they were seeing. Right in front of their porch was a gravel road where they parked their cars. About 20 meters away from their house to the left is their barn, and beyond the barn, basically straight out from the porch, is this huge open field where there's no trees or anything. It was like open grazing area. And then way beyond the field was the beginning of this tree line, of this really dense forest. So we're talking at least a couple hundred meters away where she sees these lights. And she described it as like a pulsating light. It did not look like a car or some sort of vehicle, not to mention there was no road out straight ahead from their porch. It was just a dense forest where there was absolutely no one that should have been in there. Eric immediately, when he sees the lights, he thinks there's a poacher on his property, someone illegally hunting on his property. And so he gets Sean, his son, who did not live with them but was staying the night that night, he gets him to come outside and say, "Hey, do you think that's a poacher down there at the edge of our tree line?" And Sean's like, "I don't know, maybe." Eric decides that he wants to go tell this person to leave his property, and so he asks Sean to come with him. They figured they would just get to the edge of the property and yell out, "Hey, this is private property, you need to leave." As they're walking across the field and they're getting closer to the tree line, the lights, those pulsating lights, begin to fade and disappear back into the woods. And they get all the way up to the tree line and they can't see any lights at all. Even though at this point, standing on the edge of the forest, Eric and Sean are fairly confident that this poacher has left, they decide, just to be sure, let's walk a little ways into the woods. Even though it's totally dark, we're not going to get lost. We'll walk a little ways into the woods and just continue to yell, "This is private property." So
My thing is, the only part we ain't getting to, did they have a flashlight of their own? Did they go get the guns at the,
I sure was like, look,
at the shed?
Look, we can go because it's our property.
I need a little bit more detail.
I'm going to need some lights, and I need a little protection because I don't know who that is in the woods.
And I can't see because it's
and
dark
what are you
at
doing
night.
here? Because it's
a secluded area, bro. Like, this is my land. This is my property. This is why I'm out here. I don't want no neighbors. I don't want no company. Hey, you might not know, fool, but this private property. I'm gonna blow your ass.
but
You know what I'm saying?
real.
to leave. And so they begin walking, and it's a very dense forest. Lots of low-hanging limbs. It's not somewhere that's easy to walk. There's no walking trails or anything like that. And they walk, 10, 15 meters into the woods, and then they hear what sounds like someone walking parallel to them, maybe 15 meters away from them on their left. And they both stop and they look. They didn't want to take any chance that they were being stalked by a predator. And so they thought, you know what? The lights are gone. I don't know what animal this is. Let's just get out of here. About a month goes by, and Nathan, who is Chelsea's boyfriend, was staying with the family at the farm. And it was the first nice spring day. I mean, it was a very dark and dreary winter. Maine winters tend to be that way. And so that weekend, Nathan and Chelsea decide, let's go walk around the woods. So they take the 2 family dogs and they start walking across that big field in front of the house into the forest, the same area where Sean and Eric have been looking for those lights and then heard what sounded like an animal that was near them. And so at first, Chelsea has the dogs on leashes, but they get to the forest and she lets them off their leash to let them go run around and go crazy because they've been cooped up because of the wintertime as well. The 2 dogs instantly take off running for about 100 meters, and then they come to a dead stop right outside this big mound. It looks like a dirt mound, but they get up close to it and they can tell that it's actually more like a den. There are these huge pieces of wood that have been leaned into like a lean-to type structure with moss and dirt and grass put all over the outside. I mean, it looks like a very intentionally made mound, and there's a circular hole that's been created right on the front of it. And the dogs have stopped right outside and they're poking their heads in and smelling into this hole. And Nathan and Chelsea are looking at this thinking, who did this? Is this like a hunter's thing? Is this something a hunter might make? Would an animal make this? This seems really big for some animal to make this, but it definitely was made on purpose, whatever it is. And so Nathan, he just kind of looks down into this den, but it's totally dark, and he thinks he hears growling coming from inside of the den. And so without any hesitation, he goes, we gotta go. I don't know what's living in there, but we gotta go. And so they take the dogs, they put them back on leashes, and the 2 of them get out of the forest as quickly as they can. When Nathan and Chelsea came back to the house, they told Eric and Shelly, and actually Sean was there too, and they said, hey, we found this den of some kind out in the middle of the woods, basically straight out from your front porch. And that's when Eric and Sean said, well, about a month ago, we were out in that same area, and we could have sworn we heard some animal stalking us. A couple of months go by, and Eric and Shelly are sitting on their front porch having their coffee ritual, and there was just this low mist that kind of hung over the entire field. And as they're sitting there, they're commenting on how creepy it was. And what started as just kind of a friendly discussion about the general creepiness took a turn when they realized that they couldn't hear any wildlife. No crickets, no animals, no anything. And normally at night, because they were out here all the time, it was humming with life. And so Shelly had this high-powered flashlight that she always had out with her, and she starts scanning the property, not knowing what she's looking for, but it just seemed really odd that they couldn't hear any wildlife. But after she scans across the whole field, she doesn't see anything, and so she puts her flashlight down and just starts talking to Eric about whatever they normally talked about over coffee at night. Eric would say in numerous interviews that for whatever reason, when she put that flashlight down, he suddenly felt like they were in danger. He's looking out, he doesn't see anything, and then all of a sudden he just says, you know what? We gotta go inside. I don't know what it is, but we gotta go inside. And Shelly's like,
hold on, Shelly. Anytime you got that gut feel,
Baby, you better listen.
better start learning how to trust your gut. Like, my gut ain't telling me that, bro. One person
I'm
get.
overthinking it, baby.
No, I'm saying because she like my gut ain't giving me that feel. Your gut might be giving. You better listen to the daddy of the house. I'm the man.
You are crazy.
I'm just saying, bro. You better listen to the daddy of the
crazy.
house. You with me for a reason.
My goodness.
Like,
Look, just
if my gut
trust me.
telling me, that means it's telling all of us. So you better close mouths and open ears and let move.
My goodness.
Hell, what's wrong with you?
I want to stay out here for a little bit longer. We'll go in a few minutes. And Eric stands up and he's like, no,
always
go
like
inside.
that.
And he tries to grab her to kind of push her into the house. And she's kind of fighting against him. And then all of a sudden, Shelly stops. And she goes, did you hear that? And Eric immediately knew that whatever it was, it's the reason he had that sudden feeling of being in danger. Eric turns around and he can't see anything because it's too dark. Shelly grabs her flashlight and she begins scanning the tree line.
Shelly, take your
Hey,
butt in the house.
You always trying to. No, she always trying to grab the damn flashlight. Flashlight ain't gonna save your life. And then y'all got the guns all the way over there in the shed. You need at least one of them in the house. Boom! You know what I'm saying? You have to be real. Like, I understand the gun thing when y'all
was in y'all previous home.
No, I'm saying I understand Eric needs to have a place inside
like
the
a
home.
safe place.
Yeah, a safe
locked
place.
up, whatever.
Y'all are out on this property solo dolo.
Like y'all already been having these weird encounters.
We
Like,
should have at least 1 or 2. Sean in the house. When Sean there, I'm here. We locked and loaded, baby.
yeah.
I ain't got that.
Ground, and he can't see anything because it's too dark. Shelly grabs her flashlight and she begins scanning the tree line. And she gets to the field and gets about halfway across the field right in front of them, and she stops. Because right in the middle of the field are 3 creatures that look like wolves. These huge creatures that are looking right at them. 2 others join them. So there's 5 wolf-like creatures that are staring at them right from the middle of their field. She says to Eric, "What are those?" And Eric, who's an experienced hunter, he has no idea. He goes, "I think they're bears. They could be wolves. We gotta go inside." And so Shelly's just holding the light and they start charging directly at her so fast that she wasn't able to keep the light on them. They were already halfway across the field. They go inside, they shut the door, and they lock it. And without saying a word, the 2 of them make their rounds across the entire bottom floor, lock every window, close every blind, make sure everything is shut. There was something different about these 5 creatures. The way they started running towards them, it just felt like they were targeting Eric and Shelly. And so even after the house had been secured, they didn't feel safe. And so they're standing in the middle of their cabin, and Eric's saying, "My guns are in the barn. We have no protection." And Shelly is like, "Whatever you do, do not go out there. We don't know what these are. Could be a bear, could be a wolf. We don't know. Don't go out there." Shelly goes upstairs. She shuts off all the lights. She makes sure.
Bet you Eric ass went out. Because he want to be Captain Save-A-Hoe.
Well, hold on.
Sometimes you listen to the woman, but sometimes you also listen to the man. But she should have listened to the man in the beginning and had at least 1 or 2. Like, you can't keep all your guns in the house.
Right, because what good
are
they gonna do? I mean, I get it, but at the same time.
What you said, what good are they gonna do with them being in the shed?
With situations,
to be able to
you just
protect
never
the
know.
home.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Windows are shut, and then she goes to Chelsea's room, her daughter, and she wakes her up and she says, "Hey, come here, you gotta look at this." And they go to the window and they kind of like poke their head into the window because they don't want to like totally open it up and stare out because they don't want the creatures to see them. But they're kind of poking their head out the window, and she's like, "Look." And standing on the gravel are these 5 creatures that are just standing in a row looking directly at the house. It was like they were waiting for them to come out the front door. They were just patiently standing there looking at the house. It did not look like normal animal behavior at all. And as she's looking, one of the animals looks up at Shelly in the window. And the creature stands on its 2 legs. It gets on its hind legs and looks at her. And Shelly gasps and falls over because the creature's like 8 feet tall. And so Shelly's on the ground looking at Chelsea, and she can't believe what she just saw. It's like her brain can't process that this creature, 1, had even seen her. They barely had their head up in the window. But that it stood on its hind legs, that it was so big. What are they doing? Sitting in a row right on the outside of the house waiting for us? What's going on here? And so Shelly tells Chelsea, "Get in your bed, don't go to your windows, don't leave this room." And that's when Shelly also remembers that she hasn't heard her 2 dogs. And she's worried they might be outside. And so she starts quietly walking all along the top floor looking for her dogs. She's calling to her 2 dogs, and they don't come out. Goes into the master bedroom and finds her 2 dogs hiding in the corner of the room next to each other. Like they're startled by whatever it is outside. Meanwhile, Eric was pacing downstairs thinking he needed to go to the barn and he needed to get his guns to protect the family. But he knew that between his own disability, he can barely walk very fast, and he'd have to unlock the barn, and then he'd have to pull down the gun case, unlock that. All the while, he's exposed to these animals that are out there. And so the next best thing in his mind is maybe he could run outside, get in his truck, and back the truck up to the front door, and then he could get his wife and his daughter to come out, jump in the car, and they could drive away. So he just goes to the window, and he pulls the blinds aside to look outside, and those 5 creatures are now gone. They're not sitting on the gravel path right in front of the house. He doesn't know where they are, but they're not in front of the house. And so he closes the blinds and he's like, "Well, I don't know where they are. It's too dangerous to go out there." He starts pacing some more and he goes back to look, and he sees them back in the field where they first saw them, all 5. He can see all 5. They're facing the house still. But he can see them because the moon has now popped through and he's got illumination on the field, and he can see all 5. And he's like, "Okay, maybe if I just keep my eye on them, I can open the door, run out, get the car, back it up without them seeing me." And so without telling Shelley, he opens the door and he goes onto the front porch and he sees them out in the field. He's got a good line of sight on them. Quiet as he can, he walks down the steps and he makes his way over to his truck, which is about 10 meters away. And as he's getting closer and closer to his truck, he's got his eye on the creatures that are in the field. They haven't moved. They apparently haven't seen him. He gets to the drum.
It's all five. It's all five out there.
He said he could see all five. Like he could see all five. But is it more than five? I understand five, y'all. That's what y'all seen. And that's what came initially seen, and that's what was in front of the house.
Or is this a new five?
Or is this a new five? Right. The other five may be in the back. You know what I'm saying? Like, what? No.
Side of his truck, and he's got his keys out and he's kind of fumbling to hit the unlock button, and then his motion sensor light kicks on. And he's so on edge being out there, when the light kicks on, he drops his keys because he's so startled.
Always.
And the first thing he does, he looks towards the field. And he sees that one of the five creatures is now standing on its hind legs looking at him directly. Before he even bends down to get his keys, he sees them all running towards him. He reaches down, he grabs his keys, he runs back to the house as fast as he can, and he gets inside and slams it right as he can hear them crossing the gravel right in front of the house. And he hears them bound onto the porch and start running around the wraparound porch. He's too scared to even look in the window, so he ducks down to get out of view. Shelley, who was upstairs, can hear everything going on, and she yells, "Eric, what's going on?" And he goes, "Stay up there, stay up there." Shelley, Eric, Chelsea, everyone's just frozen, waiting, knowing that these creatures are right on the other side, walking along his wraparound porch. And after a while, he hears the footsteps of these creatures leave the porch and go back onto the gravel area. And at some point, he pokes his head up and he looks, and all five are sitting there just facing the house, waiting for them to come out of the house. And so he scurries up the stairs to where Shelley and Chelsea are, and they just are so scared. So they decide they gotta call the police. If nothing else, the police will drive up, and their vehicle might scare away these creatures. But on the phone, Shelley lets on that what they're really scared about is something on their property. In fact, it's five creatures, things running around outside their property. And immediately the police officer who's responding to this, he's like, "All right, well, are you sure it's not a moose? Are you sure it's not a bear?" And finally she's like, "No, can you please just come over here?" And he's like, "Listen, ma'am, just keep your door shut, keep your windows shut, and I'm sure it'll be fine." And ultimately, that's how the call ends. They're on their own. The family felt helpless, and Eric especially felt really frustrated because he can't protect his family. He doesn't have a weapon, he can't get to his vehicle, they're just trapped. And so they decide the only thing we can do is barricade ourselves inside of the house. And so for the next 30 minutes, they put heavy furniture in front of all the doors and the windows. They blocked everything as best as they could. They got kitchen knives, and they got an axe that they had inside to chop some wood. As they go upstairs, they lock themselves in the master bedroom with their weapons and their dogs. And they get on the bed and they just decide all we can do is wait until the sun comes up. During the time they were barricading their house, they would look out from time to time and they would see the five creatures just sitting on that gravel area right in front of their house, just waiting for them. When they finally went upstairs and barricaded themselves in that room, they immediately heard the creatures move off of the gravel. And they heard a couple of them at least walk onto the porch and start pacing around the porch. And it's totally silent besides the sounds of these creatures. And they were clearly communicating with each other. They were bumping into walls and then they were howling at each other. There was clear communication happening where they were trying to coordinate some sort of attack on the family. Now, the way the house was set up is there was a second floor roof, and then the first floor was a little bit wider than the second floor and had its own kind of separate roof. And after a while, the creatures stopped walking on the porch. They left the porch and it's just silence. And then they would hear them jump onto that first roof.
Maybe they jumping on stuff, child.
Well, if you whatever
and then
creature
she
it
already
is,
had said when they stood up.
Yeah, they were 8 feet, so that ain't nothing for them.
That ain't nothing.
The great thing about this is that if you walked around the roof, you could actually look into the second floor windows. And so they're laying there, and periodically they'd be looking out their window. There was windows on either side of the room they were in, but there was a thin curtain between them and the window. And so from time to time, these creatures would walk past their windows, and they would stop, they'd put their paws up onto the window, and they would look inside. But there was a very thin sheet between them and the glass, so they couldn't see the creature, and the creature couldn't see them. All night, they're listening to these creatures running around. And sometimes they'd hear really loud scratching, like they had figured something out and they were trying to burrow their way into the house. But after a whole night of this, they never actually broke the glass. They never got inside the house. As the sun started to come up in the morning, the creatures jumped off the roof and they could hear them running away. And for about an hour, they didn't hear anything outside. the sun's come up and they felt safe again. And so they left their room, they go downstairs, and they finally open it up, and all over their property are signs of huge creatures that had been on their property. Massive footprints with huge claws at the end. They found tufts of hair that had gotten caught on fence posts. And even scarier is they found all these points on the house, in particular on the second floor when they were walking on that roof, where there was clear markings that they had tried to burrow into the house. There were these deep-seated scratch marks into the side of the house. The front door had been scratched apart. I mean, it was very clear that whatever these creatures were, they were trying to get into the house, but they had just been unsuccessful. This experience was so traumatic for the family that they sold the house and they moved very quickly after that. And they have not experienced anything like that since they left. So what do you think those creatures were? Was that a bear, a wolf, or something else? Let me know in the comments what you think, and I will get back to all the early commenters. So get in there and give me your best theory. If you enjoyed this video and you haven't done this already, please waterboard the...
So, I know everybody's question is, what do y'all think it is? What do y'all think it is? Like, I don't know.
I honestly don't know. Like, at first I was like, well, maybe they're just wolves. But then when she said how they stood up and, like, how tall they looked, I was like, well, I don't have a clue now.
I have no clue. Like, for one, I need photo evidence of the aftermath.
Yeah.
To be like, oh, those tracks look like this. Those tracks could have been this. Or the claw markings. Or even the hair.
The hair that was left behind.
I don't know what the aftermath looked like. So, even though Mr. Baldwin might have painted a good picture, I still need the pictures.
You want to see that scene.
I still want to see the pictures.
Scene.
Yeah, to actually see what they might have. Because I'm sure y'all took pictures. If y'all didn't take pictures, then, you know what I'm saying, it might...
And even the speed. I'm trying to, like, the speed of how, like,
they were going fast. But I already know somebody going to be in the comments, man, that was a number Bigfoot. Like, you really think that many? Like,
everyone said, but
y'all don't be believing in nothing else, but y'all strongly believe in Bigfoot.
Yeah, so with this one, I have no clue. Like, the only thing I could have thought of were wolves, but now I'm kind of like skeptical on that because I'm like of how big they were, like how tall, rather I should say.
Or is there a line of wolves that can be big and massive?
Or like and
so
yeah, true.
Or could it be something else?
Or could it be something? It could be something else.
I'm really on this one. I'm stoked. I have no clue. Now my thing is, Shelly, do you let Eric keep his guns around a little closer? Because you know what I'm saying? This is traumatic.
Yeah, right. Because you just never know if something.
And then my thing is, where did Sean stay? You know what I'm saying? He would be at the house, but he wasn't always at the house. And sometimes he would stay at the house. So I guess he's not close if he would spend a night sometimes.
Or maybe he's... because they didn't say ages, so maybe he's older.
I'm saying he's older, but I'm saying where does he like? As far as, like, does he stay in the same town, or does he stay in the town that y'all used to stay in? And he just come visit. And that's
why he spends the night sometimes.
Yeah,
so
that's
you don't
what I'm saying.
Have to drive. Yeah.
So like, because Sean obviously wasn't there. Because then, to be honest, possibly good thing Sean wasn't there. Because then y'all would play superheroes
and really try to be.
Come on, Sean. We're gonna scheme up. You know what I'm saying?
Good thing, because if y'all were. Because
Eric already was trying to be Captain Save-A-Ho, and then now he's got scared too, and he was at the run.
You would be too.
Nigga, I never went out in the first place. I ain't gonna hold you, bro. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like,
yeah, I feel you.
Like, we gotta wait this one out. Like, to be honest, y'all from the get-go, y'all should have waited that one out. But when he came out and tried to get in the vehicle, it started them and ticked them off.
Yeah, but I guess the thing of him trying to go out and get his guns is because he don't know what they have in mind to do. He wasn't trying to go out. Or to go out and leave, rather. Yeah, whatever, to escape. Whatever. He was trying to protect
They retreated, though.
Huh?
They had retreated by then. So they were at that point, they retreated and they were watching. But when he came out and tried to get in that car.
But I'm wondering if they were successful with getting in the car. I'm wondering would they still have attacked.
Yeah, I think they would have. Because and I think that it would have been easier for them.
It would have been easy for them to get to them.
That's the reason why I said the best thing for them to have done was stay low key, stay in the house from the get-go, and wait it out.
To do what they did. not.
But y'all end up doing. I'm saying y'all should do that in the first place,
Yeah.
not in the second place. Because the dogs. You want me to tell you how I know for a fact there was a threat when you have and it was something humongous. The dogs didn't want to go see what it is. They could sense it. Even when the dogs ran up on the mound, they went up and they had to observe before they even approached. Because most dogs, they would have just went straight in that hole. They sensed danger. Yeah. And they wanted to see what it was.
I'm really curious what it is, because whatever it is, it's only like a night type of thing. Because they were close to the little mound thing in the daytime, and they could hear the crawlers. But they didn't attack or do anything.
Let me see.
What?
I just want to see some. Come on, in my head, my mind, my thoughts. Night. Y'all up on me.
You typing so slow. Let me see.
I ain't talking about no damn worm.
What are you trying to look up? Don't worry about it. Don't worry about it.
I don't know. I'm just trying to see. Ooh. Oh, that's just regular wolf.
That's just regular, yeah.
I don't know, man. I'm thinking of some shit like this, though.
It's still just the...
But no, I'm saying something that looks like a wolf, but it's massive.
Okay, well, let me see something.
The good question is, how big can a wolf get?
Let me see. Let me look up something real quick. Child, this...
They can't get that big.
This one right here, I'm thinking it's just because this one right here said they can get up to 5 to 7 feet. Like seriously.
I don't think it was a wolf, though.
You don't think it was a wolf?
No.
But you can't be... You don't know, though. You really don't know. Okay, I'm off of it.
Don't know.
I'm off of it, though. Because I went there, so I couldn't see him. What?
I need more visual evidence. That's all.
Okay, but that's
the only way I can kind of speculate what it could be.
Okay.
I need more visual. I need to see what the fur or hair looks like. Fur or hair. I need to see what the paw print size were.
True, because they did say there was massive paw print sizes.
Even if a wolf gets massive, the paw
like
print ain't gonna be massive. So I need to see.
But again, we don't even know how massive. People exaggerate, so we don't know. That's again going back to... And
you can say, because then you can say 8 feet. So if it stood on its hind leg and looks 8 feet tall, and you saying the paws are massive, then it's not a wolf.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
If they just like, so who knows? I don't know.
Bro.
I don't know.
Clueless.
Y'all let us know.
Hey, man, make sure y'all spam us up. Let us know your thoughts and opinions in the comments, because we need your help on this one, because I'm clueless.
Because this may be something I'm not thinking about.
Or not familiar with. True. The Bigfoot thing, doubt it. They would have been able... If Bigfoot is a thing, Bigfoot would have actually been able to gain access. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And would have opened that damn door. Whatever it is, even the knowledge of busting through the window. Bears will go in. I
don't know why every time something happens, I never go there. My brain never goes there. But everyone in the comments always be like, I think it was Bigfoot. But my brain never goes there. So I'm just like, I don't know about that.
I don't know. I need y'all help, man. But as always, I do go by the name DJ McKidd. This is
Sierra Nicole.
You are?
Had to go and get it, ain't no time to kick it. Got a stack of flip for my foes. Dollar. Please tell me you can hear me. Don't turn your back and don't neglect me. Just let me know if you need me. Dollar. Let me watch out for my partner.